The Oort Perimeter, Chapter 20. Alfred paced nervously back and forth in front of the shield management station. "I'm telling you, if we smooth out the resonance wave, the shield array will grow stronger," barked Corbin. "And I'm telling you, if we do, we're likely to overload the whole blasted thing and leave us all sitting here with our butts hanging in the wind," snapped Bentley. Corbin reared back and glared at Bentley. "Excuse me, but I helped develop this system." "Yeah, well, I had to install it, and fix all of your mistakes in the process. I was the one who got the darn thing working in the first place." "Gentlemen. Enough. We need solutions, not swordplay," shouted Alfred. The two men quickly fell silent. "Thank you. Now, is there anything we need to do in order to strengthen the shields or ensure that they won't fail?" he continued. "Right now, everything is working to spec. The more they bombard the shield, the stronger it gets. The only thing that's not part of the original design, or even the mock-ups of the shield in full operation, is the resonance wave that's moving across the outside of the shield," said Corbin. "Is it a danger to anybody?" asked Alfred. Corbin shook his head. "Not at present. It's currently being passed harmlessly between shield nodes as though it's a natural part of the matrix, even though it's not. It's basically acting like a ripple of water on an otherwise calm sea," said Bentley. "So why the concern?" asked Alfred. "Because the wave is generating a powerful gravimetric displacement field." "I don't understand. Is it generating a gravity field, or something more?" he asked. "By itself, no, it's not generating any gravity at all. Hence why it's not affecting the shield array. But, if that energy comes in contact with a physical object of sufficient size, say a starship for example, it'll trigger a gravimetric point energy event 10 times stronger than the gravity of our own sun. The mass of that object will then experience a molecular reduction event on the scale of nearly 4.25 by 1023, crushing the object to an area smaller than a grain of sand. Once it reaches the point of greatest reduction, it will then experience an explosive rebound that'll scatter the object's atoms like dust at a rate of 9.365 by 1042 rd per second, with an associated energy shock wave of 937 SEU per second, which the shield should be able to handle. Of course, that assumes that the implosion event doesn't exceed 300 gravimetric units per second. If it does, it could create a quantum singularity, which creates an even bigger problem for us. Beyond that, there's no major threat to us," said Corbin. Alfred blinked. "No major threat to us? It's sounding like there's a lot of threat to us." "Well, yes and no. But that's true of everything." Alfred rubbed his head in frustration. "I'm liking this whole thing less and less by the moment. All right, see what you can do about neutralizing that wave, and keep that shield at full strength. Bentley, I expect you to work with the doctor, and do it without fighting. We've got a lot of angry Varnock on the other side of that shield who want to use us for target practice. I'd like to deny them that opportunity if at all possible." "Understood, sir," said both men. Phylan looked up in surprise to see nearly 24 Gaekvan soldiers storm through the door to his office. "Ambassador, you must come with us. Your homeworld is under attack and you're in grave danger," said one of the soldiers. "Under attack," said Phylan in surprise. "Come, we must hurry," insisted the soldiers. Phylan scooped up several data cards and secured his workstation before turning and following the guards. The men then escorted him across the complex to an isolated back alleyway where one of the men grabbed Phylan and threw him against a wall. The rest of the soldiers then drew their weapons and held him at gunpoint. "Hey, what is the meaning of this?" he demanded. Just then a tall, well-dressed Varnock officer appeared from between the men. Phylan immediately realized that the men he thought were Gaekvan troops were actually Juna transforms. He grit his teeth in anger. In his haste he'd failed to see the signs warning him of the clear and present danger before him. Now all he had to do was figure out how to free himself from this mess. "So what do you want with me?" he growled. The Varnock laughed mockingly. "Isn't it obvious, Chapaji? We're here to eliminate you, and complete the annihilation of your race currently being undertaken by our Black Fleet. Phyland glared at him. So, how'd you do it? How'd you get past the guards? It wasn't hard. The guards are underpaid and easily look the other way if provided with enough compensation to do so, said the Varnock. But why? What have we done to you? The Varnock hacked twice, and then shivered. You are a threat to our very existence, and thus need to die in order to protect our people from extermination, he hissed. Phyland glared at the Varnock. This is absurd. What you're doing is attempted genocide, and an open act of war, cried Phyland. An act of war? Ambassador, we are already at war. But with the annihilation of your race, we will again have peace. It is a small price to pay to save the lives of so many trillions of our own. You animal. You're a race without honor or dignity. How can you think that my people could be such a threat to you? The Varnock shook his head. It is not us that you are a threat to. It is our children. If we do not take action now, they will be the ones who will suffer from your cruelty and malice. We are a proud people and will not serve, nor pander to, an inferior race whose only goal is galactic conquest, driven by greed, and a lust for power. It sounds more like you're the ones driven by greed, said Phyland. The Varnock hacked in mockery. Your words are hollow and without substance, Chapachi. They will not sway me, nor save you, he said. Then maybe this will, came a voice from behind them. The Varnock officer, and a small band of soldiers with him, turned and stared in surprise as a large assault team of Gaik Vaughn and Sevedith shock troops flowed out of the shadows with guns drawn and at the ready. Moments later, Sin stepped out from between the soldiers. Give it up. You're cornered and outnumbered with no chance of escape. Surrender now, and you will be shown mercy, he said. The Varnock hissed angrily at him, drew a pistol and pointed it at Phyland's head. I will not surrender. Either you lower your weapons, or this one dies, he hissed. Sin grinned. Are you sure you can kill him? He asked mockingly. The Varnock hissed, and then gasped in pain as Phyland snatched his wrist, dislocated his shoulder, shattered his arm, and then drove a crippling blow to his forehead and throat in what appeared to be a single, fluid motion. The fake Gaik Vaughn soldiers gasped in surprise as the Varnock wavered briefly, and then collapsed to the ground unconscious. Seeing this incredible display of fighting skill and the neutralizing of their commander, they immediately dropped their weapons and surrendered, after which they were quickly taken into custody. Phyland studied his handiwork briefly, and then turned to Sin. Have I ever mentioned how much I hate it when the bad guys monologue like that? He said whimsically. You alright? Asked Sin. I think I might have broken a fingernail, but otherwise I'm fine, quipped Phyland. Sin grinned. I'm sorry you had to go through that, but it couldn't be helped. We had to let them abduct you in order to properly determine who was behind the attacks from the other day. It appears that my assessment was correct. Well, I'm glad you're on top of this, because they sure caught me by surprise. However, one thing bothers me. He said that Earth was under attack and would soon be annihilated. Is that true? Sin sighed. Yes, it is. I just got word of it a few minutes ago. Because of this, the Chancellor has called an emergency meeting to try and decide what to do about it and how to stop this travesty before your people are destroyed. What of your people? Have they sent ships to stop the Varnock attack? Sin frowned. We've gathered our fleets, and are ready to defend Sol at a moment's notice. However, we've been prevented from responding by forces sympathetic to the Varnock and the High Council. They claim that, since this attack is against you, and you alone, we are not allowed to interfere. Wait, what? The Varnock just waltzed into your space, with guns blazing, in an obvious act of war, and the Council's just going to pretend that it's our problem. Cried Phyland. I'm sorry, my friend. Politics and protocol forbid us from doing what we wish to. Can't you call their actions an act of war? They illegally invaded your space in order to reach us. That ought to count for something. I know. But galactic politics don't work quite the same as Jinn politics. Now, come. We must go somewhere safe so that we can talk. I already have a plan to deal with this issue. However, we must do it somewhere more private. Phylan thought about this briefly, and then gestured to a nearby hallway. All right, lead the way. Mobiek studied the status of the battle and frowned. Have we made any progress weakening their defensive shield? He asked. No, my lord. The barrier is unaffected, replied one of the crewmen. Mobiek grumbled. We're wasting our time here. The Gaekvan won't be lax in organizing a response to our attack. Our politicians will buy us some time, but we must complete our work before those efforts to stall expire. How about I give you something that will speed your efforts? Came a voice from behind him. Mobiek spun in surprise to see a man sitting casually on top of a rear engineering console. Several soldiers moved to arrest him, but were thrown across the bridge with a simple flick of his hand. Several more charged at him, but immediately stopped as Mobiek barked loudly, and raised his hand in a gesture to halt. Mobiek then batted his eyes at the man as he studied him. Who are you? He asked. The man smirked slyly. Are names so important to you? No, but it is considered polite to know the name of the one you are addressing. The man laughed. Very well, then, you may call me Zoan. Mobiek's eyes narrowed as he studied the intruder. Your body is Chapaji. Yet, by your brief demonstration of power, I suspect that you are something far greater, he said. Zoan uttered a deep, evil laugh. Your skills of observation are superb, O Great One, he said with a hint of mockery. Mobiek further narrowed his eyes. Why are you on my ship, and what is this thing you speak of? He asked firmly. A secret. One that will expose your enemy's throat to the plunging dagger that, even now, rests within your hand, said Zoan. He gestured towards one of the stations, and then smiled as the operator looked on in astonishment and surprise. Mobiek spotted this immediately, and then hurried over to him. What do you see? He asked. I can't explain it, my lord, but only moments ago their shield registered as solid, with no imperfections or weaknesses. Now I've spotted what appears to be a high-energy resonance wave rippling across its surface, said the operator. What does that do for us? Asked Mobiek. The operator flew across the console and brought up several more screens, each one containing a different collection of data. The wave has a gravimetric signature to it. I believe that, if we time it properly, and provide enough mass to the right point, it will generate a temporary singularity powerful enough to breach their shields. Mobiek looked back towards where the man had been laying, but saw nothing. Zoan was gone. He looked around the bridge briefly, and then back at the readout. How much mass would be required to trigger such an event? One of our heavy battle cruisers would suffice, my lord. If it approached at high warp and impacted the shield at just the right moment, it would trigger the event and breach the shields. But we would need to withdraw to a safe distance to protect ourselves from the resulting blast wave, lest it destroy us as well. Mobiek spun around and said, Commander. Pick one of our heavy battleships and send it into the shield. Coordinate with this operator on the exact steps needed to create the temporary singularity. Then signal the rest of the fleet to withdraw to a safe distance. But my lord, why would you sacrifice one of our ships? Cried the officer. I am willing to do whatever is necessary to ensure the complete annihilation of the Chapaji. Thus, one heavy battleship is a small price to pay for the saving of our entire race, he said in a low and menacing voice. The officer gulped nervously. Understood, my lord. Sarah watched in interest as the crewmen around her carefully discussed the progress of the battle. She was most especially interested in how Mike seemed completely calm, yet still concerned about the many things unfolding in front of him. There was a bold confidence in him that emanated from the knowledge that the shield was doing what it had been designed to do. Yet there was also a fear that it might fail, causing the unthinkable to happen. As she watched this, she sensed something. It was the same feeling she'd sensed earlier. She transported herself to the top of the ship and searched the area again. Nothing. She reached out once more with her senses, but again came up empty. She narrowed her eyes. She was certain she'd sensed Zoen nearby, yet she couldn't find him now. If he was in the area, it was likely for less than honorable reasons. She transported herself back onto the bridge and continued to watch the battle unfold. If Zoen was around, she'd have to be extra cautious from here on out. "What the?" said Morton. "Got something, Lieutenant?" asked Mike. "Well, I really don't know. Either the Varnock are changing tactics, or they're leaving," she said. "Say what?" replied Mike.